Chapter 8. All souls weigh the same. Weller and Mills, my office. Bowden called them over, and as they walked towards him, he opened his door. The chief gestured for them to walk inside his office. "Come on in. Take a seat." The two paramedics obliged, sitting in the chairs in front of his desk as he sat behind it. "After everything you went through with Lolo's people, I want you to know you have my full blessing if you want to take some time off." The offer lifted a weight off Emerson's shoulders. Truth was, she'd been slightly nervous about getting back to work, even though she knew Lolo had been arrested. She had this uneasy feeling, like she was apprehending having to go on another call. Back in St. Louis, there weren't many big calls like the ones they had in Chicago. So hearing those words coming from her chief helped a lot. She felt heard and understood. "Thank you, Chief, but personally, I'm fine." Peter answered first, his words not surprising Emerson in the slightest. She knew he would say that. "I'd rather be here at work." She then answered, knowing that if she went home instead, she would just mull over it for days on end. Work was the safest place for her right now, even if she was apprehending her next calls. "In that case, I would like to ask you both to consider to see someone. Processing a trauma like that takes time. We have a lot of good people who can help." "I think that would be really good." Emerson agreed to it, knowing that her chief was right. The whole situation was a lot to take in. Plus, the fact that the feeling of the gun pointed at her wouldn't leave her mind was ticking point, signaling her that she should seek help. "For me, anyway," she added when she noticed Peter avoiding eye contact, very obviously against the idea. "I'll make the call." Chief Bowden nodded, turning to her partner. "Peter, I'm straight." Bowden hummed as Emerson looked down. She was slightly disappointed that he turned it down so easily. As much as she believed he was fine to work, she also knew there was no way he was already past it. "Okay then, you change your mind. You let me know." "Will do. That's all." Chief Bowden dismissed them, both paramedics stepping out of the office and heading back towards the common room. "Hey, Mills," Emerson called as her partner walked ahead of her. He slowed his steps, allowing her to catch up. "If you ever need anything, I just want you to know that I'm here." Before he could answer, the alarms blared through the place. "Truck 81, Squad 3, Ambulance 61. Two-car accident, West 17th and Halstead." As soon as they got on scene, the firefighters were already working on trying to get the victims out of the cars. They joined them immediately, grabbing everything they needed to be ready to work quickly. The paramedics quickly learned that one of the victims was Chaplain Orlovsky. Mills got in the chaplain's car through the back to put a C-collar on him and tend to his injuries while she did the same with the woman in the other car. "Mills' status?" Casey demanded. "Yeah, I've got a pulse, but it's weak. He's lost a lot of blood from his head wound." Mills yelled back, "Help me, please. Please, help me." The woman cried as Emerson worked on her, making sure the collar was on right before they even tried to move her. "Hang in there, lady. We're getting you out." Herman answered as the paramedic put a blanket over her, protecting her from the glass and the sparks that might get in her face as the firefighters worked to get her out. "All right, guys. We're good to go." Emerson called, stepping away to let them work as Mills did the same. The firefighters quickly worked, only calling the paramedics back when they needed the backboard to get the woman out. "Hey, Lieutenant. Good luck." Mills called, gesturing to the chaplain as they rolled away with the woman on their stretcher. They rushed the woman to the hospital, letting the firefighters work on getting the chaplain out of his car. As they dropped off their patient, they saw another ambulance come in soon after them with the chaplain. The paramedics from 51 waited a little while at the hospital, writing down their reports as the doctors took care of the chaplain. Mills practically ran to one of the doctors that came out of his room, asking for news. Once they got the information they needed, they drove back to the firehouse. Emerson walked into the common room first, Lieutenant Casey walking up to her. "Hey, how is he?" She sighed. "He's still touch and go. There's multiple internal injuries. He still hasn't regained consciousness." She let him know, noticing his facial expression falling. Emerson didn't know the chaplain, mostly since she hadn't been here long, but she knew how much he meant to everyone around her. Plus, she'd heard wonderful things about the man, so it saddened her to to see such a horrible thing happening to him. Casey sighed in response. Okay, the extra time he spent pinned in, how much worse did that make it? His question made her feel a pinch in her chest. She felt his hurt. It's hard to tell. He only nodded before walking off, leaving her with a weight on her chest. Emerson never liked being the bearer of bad news. Chaplin's a junkyard dog. He's going to be just fine, Herman confidently stated, trying to reassure everyone around him. Emerson smiled and nodded, appreciating his efforts to keep everyone sane. She walked away afterwards, going straight to the bunker room. She only felt like sleeping away the day at this point. Emerson found Gabby sitting on her bed, so before heading towards hers, she stopped to see her old partner, who seemed troubled. All souls weigh the same, Gabby mumbled under her breath, not even registering the confusion on Emerson's face. What? One life isn't worth any more than the other. That's what the chaplain told me after Shay died. Gabby further explained, not realizing that Emerson didn't even know the circumstances of her old partner's death. When we went into that building, Shay was hyping me up, telling me how a great firefighter I was going to be, she recalled, smiling. Emerson sat down comfortably, ready to listen to her. And I hyped her up right back, telling her she'd be a great pick. We were on each side of a victim. I told her to switch with me so she could do the procedures. I just wanted her to know that she could do it without me. That's why we changed places. She was cut off by a sob threatening to spill out of her mouth. Gabby inhaled deeply, trying to regain composure. Kelly wants me to go back there with him. He's convinced it might have been arson. Emerson then understood her sudden need to revisit the events she went through. And are you ready for that? I don't think I'll ever be, but if we don't turn over every stone, who will? Gabby sadly answered, barely even waiting for a response before she walked off. Emerson figured she was going to find Severide, so she let her be. Ambulance 61, adult female with head injuries, 3331 West 17th Street. Emerson breathed in and out, pushing her hands on her knees to stand up and rush to the ambulance. Mills joined her, the girl waiting for him to get in securely before driving off. She parked on the side of the street, both of them stepping out with the needed equipment. Someone called for a paramedic? Emerson called as she knocked on the door. Peter waited for a few seconds before knocking again, this time louder. Fire department. Open up. The door creaked open, the chain keeping it from being all the way opened. A red-haired woman with a bloody nose showed up in the slightly ajar door. Ma'am, is everything okay? Peter asked, both of them instantly worrying about the woman's state. I'm fine. Sorry to trouble you. It looks worse than it is. I'm a bleeder. She rushed out, her voice shaking as she tried to shut the door in their faces. Emerson blocked the door with her hands. We're happy to take a look. My neighbor must have heard me yell. I was coming down the stairs and I tripped. I'm fine, really. The red-haired woman tried to sound reassuring, but the sight of a clearly unhappy man behind her sent shivers running up both paramedics' backs. Ma'am, you're sure that you're okay? At Peter's question, the man rushed forward. You heard her. He forcefully shut the door in their faces, making them take a step back. Look, we get in there, you set her aside. I'm going to square off with that husband of hers. If she gives any acknowledgement of being beat, anything at all, you call the cops, okay? Peter told her right away, refusing to leave the scene when they were sure something more was going on in that house. Got it. She nodded, and Peter knocked on the door again. Ma'am, we need you to open up, her partner called out, continuing his knocks on the door. Look, ma'am, you can decline treatment, but we're not going to leave until you sign a refusal. The door opened right when he finished speaking, the two paramedics being greeted by the husband. Emerson squeezing in, trying to walk past the man while still staying as far as possible from him. Have a seat, ma'am. I'll take a look at you. Emerson gestured to the couch, setting her things beside her. I'm fine, really, the woman claimed. Did you see what happened? Peter asked, turning towards the husband as he shut the door. The man only shook his head in response, so Peter took a step towards him and lowered his voice. Nothing, huh? Nope. There's something I need to sign, or... The woman asked Emerson, keeping her voice down as the paramedic crouched down in front of her. You can talk to me, okay? This bruise on the side of your face, is that a slap mark? Emerson gestured to said bruise, trying to keep her tone gentle so she wouldn't make the woman feel pressured to say things she didn't want to say. What no? If he hurt you, we can get you out of here, I promise. Hey, can I help you with something? Peter's voice spoke from behind her, the paramedic standing in between the man and his partner so he wouldn't get closer to her or his wife. This is my place, and that's my wife, and she said she's fine. The man pressed, his tone clearly impatient. Well, she doesn't look fine, Peter argued. I don't want treatment, okay? The woman said with tear-filled eyes as she looked at her husband before turning to Emerson. The paramedics shared a look, disappointed that it was ending that way. As Peter collected their things, Emerson made the wife sign the refusal papers, and as soon as it was done, they were on their way. Emerson walked up to Mills with her bag slung over her shoulder, ready to head home after such a long shift. Hey, not trying to get in your business, just checking on my partner. I'm fine, he simply said, zipping up his bag. Emerson raised her eyebrows, doubting his answer was true this time. He didn't seem fine to her during that last call. She thought he wasn't going to open up, but she was surprised to hear him speak up again. That domestic, it just got under my skin, that's all. I get it. They're the hardest because you can't really understand unless you've gone through it. And even then, she sighed, shuffling her feet before standing back up straight. I made an appointment with Bowden's guy, the counselor. We could go together if you want. Emerson found it important to talk after going through such traumatic events. She found out the hard way just how important it truly was. So even though Peter claimed to be fine, she'd keep encouraging him to go, without pushing, of course. He sent her a tight-lipped smile. Thanks anyway. On the next shift, Emerson was walking around the firehouse when she almost ran into Jay Halstead, walking in from the apparatus floor. Oh, hey, Halstead, she greeted him, shoving her hands in her jacket's pocket. What brings you by? Emerson walked with him, watching him point towards Kelly, who stood up to meet them halfway. Halstead, what's up? Kelly greeted him, shaking his hand. What's up, man? I was in the area. Figured I'd tell you what I got in person. Jay said, and Emerson immediately understood that he was probably talking about the possible arson case that took Shay's life. All right. So the storage unit leased out to this guy named John Johnson. Previous address he listed was 1956 Elvis Lane in Graceland, Tennessee. I found no car registered under his name. The date of birth he listed on the credit check was bogus. The guy's a ghost, man, Jay informed the lieutenant, looking disappointed that all he found was practically bullshit. Severide sighed, nodding his head. I appreciate you looking into it. I'm sorry. I mean, if it was classified as a crime scene, there would be more I could do, but Jay trailed off, slightly shrugging. No, I get it. Thanks for coming by. Kelly thanked him, taking a step back. Yeah, take it easy. Jay nodded politely, turning around and walking towards the exit. Walk me out? He asked Emerson, who nodded in response and walked with him. So, how have you been since the whole Lolo thing? Jay asked, taking a glance at the woman beside her. She took a deep breath in. Doing all right. I mean, I'm not used to the craziness that is Chicago just yet, but I'll get there. Emerson chuckled, shrugging. What about you? How have you been? Keeping busy, he simply said, offering her a smile. As they got to the door, Jay paused, turning to her. I should get back. I'll see you around? Emerson nodded and smiled back at him. Sure, say hi to Aaron for me. Traumatic amputation. His heart rate's in the 130s and he is high as a kite. Emerson briefed the nurse as they rolled their patient into the ER. My fingers. Where are my damn fingers at, lady? You lost them? I am going to get litigious on your ass. The man tried to threaten, but the wavering tone and fingerless hand made it seem a lot less scary to Emerson. Mills dropped the bag where they'd put the fingers on his lap. Here are your fingers. Better not be nobody else's fingers in that bag. Can't fool me. I've seen the way you do people around here. I'm watching you, all of you, like a hawk. The man complained as they transferred him to the hospital bed, walking off with their stretcher. Emerson and Peter shared a look, holding in their laughter. All right, I gotta know, a paramedic said as he walked up to them, smiling. Emerson chuckled. Guy's sitting on the floor with garden shears when we get there. Only one left is his pinky, Says, she loves me, bitch loves me not, cuts the sucker right off. She told him, humor in her voice. How romantic. Eh, Emerson answered, clearly unsure of how that could be labeled as romantic. But then again, she knew he was kidding. The paramedic walked off, leaving them to clean off their things and fill out their paperwork. As Emerson got straight to it, Peter noticed another team heading in with a victim. Pupils are unequal. Possible basal skull fracture. She's posturing. Get her into 2. They heard voices speak, but only Mills truly paid attention because Emerson was busying herself. That's the woman from the domestic, Peter said, walking towards her as he caught Emerson's attention. His partner followed his lead, carefully watching. I'm pretty sure, she responded. Hey, 3331 West 17th? Peter asked the paramedic who transported her, choked. Yeah, how'd you guess? Was her husband there? He ignored Chute's question, too focused on his own. They're married? The paramedic questioned, looking back at the woman. He didn't seem real broken up about it. The words played right into Peter's mind, and as they left the hospital, he took the wheel and drove straight to 3331 West 17th Street. Emerson was confused for 2 reasons. 1, Peter never drove. 2, there was no reason for them to go back to that house. Just wait right here. I'll be right back, Peter told her as he stepped out of the ambulance, clearly with a goal in mind that he wasn't going to share with her. What are you going to do? She asked, figuring she had the right to know because he might do something that could put them both in trouble. I just forgot the portable oxygen tank in there. Be right back. I'm going to grab it, he said, shutting the door right after and walking off. Emerson sighed, keeping her eyes on him the whole time. She had no idea what happened in that house, but Peter was strangely calm as he walked out and came back in the rig. Emerson chose not to say anything to him, at least until the end of shift. Can I talk to you? She asked while they both walked out with their bags slung over their shoulders. Yeah, sure. Emerson opened the side compartment on the rig, pointing at the object inside. Portable oxygen tank is right here. Yeah, it is, Peter agreed with her. Been here all day? She accused, slightly angry as the stunt he pulled could have gone the wrong way for both of them. It was an honest mistake. Peter shrugged it off. Really? She scoffed, to which he nodded. You want to BS, the paperwork, that's one thing. But don't lie to your partner, ever. And if this is some kind of PTSD rage thing over what happened with Lolo, then go see somebody like Bowden said, because these things get worse. She scolded him, not wanting to go over something like this. You done? He asked, making her feel as if she was in the wrong for worrying about it. She scoffed, shaking her head at him and walking away without another word. The day ended at Molly's over a beer, as Emerson felt the need to decompress after such a weird past couple of weeks. She was excited at first to move, then she met wonderful people, and life obviously ended up getting in the way. But whatever it was, she knew she could get through it. She always did. But sometimes a drink was much needed. Turns out she wasn't the only one who felt the need, because soon after, a familiar detective took the seat next to hers. She turned her head with a smile, making her lips curve up. Well, look who the cat dragged in, she jokingly said. Nice to see you too. He showed her his perfect teeth through a smile, thanking Herman for bringing him a beer. He didn't waste a second before dragging the bottle to his lips and swinging it back to take a sip. Rough day? She questioned, swirling the liquid in her glass. Jay nodded in response, pointing his chin to her drink. Judging by your choice of drink, I'd say yours was rougher. Emerson glanced at her drink, which was a glass of neat whiskey, and let out a low chuckle. Want to talk about it? Meh, she shrugged, unsure if she wanted to. But then she figured why not. Jay was a great listener, so it might do her some good. Plus, maybe he could help shine some light on the wonders of the male mind. Actually, maybe. I'm all ears, Jay told her, turning to face her. She sighed, straightening up in her seat. We had a call, looked like a domestic, and we were both sure it was. The woman refused treatment, and we later saw her being brought in. Bad shape. My partner didn't take it too well, and we got into it at the end of shift. Jay hissed, shaking his head. Hate those cases. Someone always gets too close. She raised her eyebrow, nodding in agreement. Yeah, I don't know what Mill's background is, but those cases shake me to the core, but I can't let it get to me. I can't go down that road, she admitted, unknowingly sparking Jay's interest. From the tone of her voice, he knew it was about something personal. That's the hardest thing about partnership in our field of work. If one of us goes down, so does the other, Jay said, taking a drink of his beer. Sounds stupid, but if you don't want to go down that road, don't. You have to set boundaries and respect them. Reach out to your chief if you need to. It's not worth losing your job over. Emerson nodded, taking his words in. You're right. Has anyone ever told you that you're great at pep talks? Jay chuckled, nodding his head. Oh, yeah. I've been told once or twice. Emerson chuckled in response. Did you talk to Aaron recently? His question took her by surprise. With furrowed eyebrows, she told him that she hadn't and wondered why he asked. She got a federal task force offer. She's been gone for the past week or so, but if you ask me, she'll be back soon. Wow, that sounds amazing. Emerson wasn't so surprised that Aaron didn't tell her. Most of the time, they only caught up to each other's business when they met in person. They were rarely texting or calling. But I have to admit that I agree with you. Pantsuits are not for her. That's what I said. Jay agreed with her, laughing along with her. They continued talking for a while, getting to know each other. Jay found her presence calming and loved hearing her point of view on things. She brought a unique perspective on things, and he truly appreciated that. She was so passionate about her job and her hobby that every story she told reeled him in. And Emerson loved getting to know him too. He seemed like a very private person, but she was glad he was opening up more and more every time they saw each other. She felt a new friendship blooming between them, and Emerson was grateful to have someone she could truly rely on. Sure, she had Aaron in her life, her oldest friend, but truth was they weren't as close as they used to be. Emerson was aware that Aaron would be there for her if needed. But Aaron always had a lot of things going on in her life, so she didn't want to add on to it. The task force thing only proving the point. With that, eventually they decided they should head off. Emerson paid for Jay's drink, as promised, before hugging him. Thank you for tonight. I had a great time, she said as they pulled away. He smiled at her. Yeah, me too. Emerson awkwardly nodded, unsure if there was something else to say or do. Well, good night, Jay. She bid him good night, glancing at her shoes before waving at him and walking off, her head spinning.